Coming up next on Backchecking the Bolts, we recap the Lightning's 6-3 victory over the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're going to preview Saturday's 5 o'clock tilt against the Boston Bruins. We interviewed Hardev Lad from the Pension Plan Puppets. We're going to talk a little bit about the Maple Leafs since they've been in the news, and we're going to talk about some Lightning injuries. All this and more coming up next.
Welcome to Backchecking the Bolts. Backchecking the Bolts is your cup of coffee to get you the latest on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Join host Jason Linkus and the managing editor of Raw Charge, Justin Godfrey, as they break down the Lightning's most recent games and go beyond the highlights, telling you what the box scores didn't. It's time to drop the puck.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Backchecking the Bolts. I'm your host, Jason Linkus, and as always, I am joined by the managing editor of Raw Charge. You could see him at www.rawcharge.com. He is Justin Godfrey. Justin, a 6-3 victory last night over the Penguins might have been one of the Lightning's best efforts in quite some time.
Yeah, it was a really great game. Great maybe overstating it a little bit, but it was a really good game for the Lightning, especially considering one of your top six forwards and Brandon Hagel didn't play. They came out. I felt they did something we hadn't seen in a long, long time, which is actually have a lead. Granted, it only lasted about 3 or 4 minutes, but I thought they played really well. I thought they came out really skating well, getting through the neutral zone really well. Both teams kind of had their legs under them early on, and then felt like the Lightning really ground out a win. They went down 2-1, had the big goal coming shorthanded to start the second period to tie it up. A point gives them the lead, and then a huge goal at the end of the period from the hammer, the Latvian locomotive himself, Zemgus Girgensson, scored his 100th career goal on a nifty little backhand play. And from there on, I think they really imposed their will on the Penguins to close it out and pick up that big 6-3 win.
Justin, let's talk about early in the game. You said this game started quick. Both teams were making a concerted effort to get behind the other team's defense. You saw some long home run passes. Were you a little bit surprised in a game of this magnitude? I mean, the Penguins needed this win because they're fighting for the playoff spot, even though right now they're in second in the Metro. Were you surprised a little bit how fast and I want to say how much of a loose cannon both teams were at the very beginning of this game?
It was kind of surprising. A couple reasons. One, it is an important game for both teams. They're both looking for that 2 points. So you would think they'd kind of be buttoned up a little defensively and not allow those long passes or the forwards to get behind the defense. And then second, the wear and tear of this long season, both teams are coming off of months where they played a lot of games. I think March, the Penguins had 17 games. The Lightning had 16. So, you figured that maybe the legs wouldn't quite be there. It's a non-division game, so maybe not the passion that you usually see. But both teams came out. Early on, the Penguin defenders, I think, had a little trouble judging the Lightning attack speed. Cirelli got behind the defense on one play. He hooked a shot wide, and then Nick Paul was all alone in on Stuart Skinner, and Skinner made a really nice save on it. And then at the other end, the Pittsburgh goal, the Chinagov goal, he just blew by Ryan McDonough. I haven't seen the Mack truck get beat, turnstile like that in a long time, and then just kind of slipped that backhand past Vasilevsky. It settled down as the game went on a little bit, but the first 10 minutes or so, I mean, that was nice, fast-paced hockey. Great transition from both teams, and really attacked the neutral zone and then pushed the puck down. So I'm kind of surprised by the start as the game went on. I don't know if it was more of a physical nature or just the way the Lightning were playing. They were really good structured for most of the game, and they just kind of wore the Penguins down a little bit. And I think, especially after the point in the Girgensson goals, I think the Penguins kind of lost a step and struggled to match the intensity that the Lightning were playing with.
The one thing I had mentioned going into the game was the Penguins were really good at forcing turnovers in the neutral zone and turning it into a 90-foot game instead of a 200-foot game. Tampa last night was the team that was forcing the turnovers in the neutral zone. I thought they did a really good job of stopping the Pittsburgh attack. They also, as you had mentioned, got behind the Pittsburgh defense. Erik Karlsson was a -4. Now, when you lose 6-3, almost everyone's going to be a minus, but Karlsson definitely had a tough night. It was not a good night for the Pittsburgh D overall. And I think that you're right. I think they in a way, it was like a boxer who knew they had a lead and just pounded them into submission. They really forechecked well in the third period, and if the Penguins had any life, they took it immediately out of them. They were able to cruise to a 6-2 lead before Chinakhov got his 20th of the year with, I think it was a second and a half left in the game to make it 6-3.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was, for the Lightning, this was a good victory. You have one more game left on the homestand. You're in perfect position now with Buffalo losing. You now have first place to yourself by the tiebreaker. And now if you're Buffalo, I have to say this, you have to wonder if you're going to have home ice advantage. As hot as Montreal is, Montreal won last night. Again, they're only 2 points behind the Sabres. After Buffalo's thinking, hey, we have a chance of maybe having the playoffs come through Buffalo through the Eastern Conference, and are you even going to have home ice in the first round? It just goes to show how tight the Eastern Conference is right now.
Exactly. One of the things I really liked about the Lightning win last night is that you had basically three out of your four lines contributed. The fourth line, you had Mitchell Chafee called up in place of Sabarin. I thought the fourth line played okay. It was actually probably one of their better games, but I don't think they were a huge factor in the game. But I think the most important line for the Lightning last night was that Yanni Gourde line, that third line, especially in the second period. You were talking about their forecheck, especially late, but I thought in the second period, that line came out. They did a lot of good things. They weren't getting rewarded early. They were getting some chances. They just weren't putting the puck in the net. But I think every time the Lightning kind of needed a momentum switch, every time Pittsburgh kind of started pushing a little bit, that Gourde line came out and did what they did, which is just keep the puck in the Pittsburgh zone for a long amount of time, almost their entire shifts. And I was just kind of looking it up. The Lightning had a 14-7 edge in shots when the Gourde line was out there. But the big one was they had an 8-2 edge in scoring chances. So they were getting their chances. They finally got rewarded on the Gergensen's goal. So, they basically throw the puck down low. Gourde wins the battle behind the puck, centers it out. Gergensen's right there in the slot, takes it to his backhand and slides it past Skinner. But when that line is going, and especially since they're usually playing against one of the top offensive lines, that's when the Lightning are at their best. So as they move forward down this stretch where they're going to play 5 of their 6 last games against division opponents, with that big game against Buffalo coming up, that's going to be a key line for them. We know the top 2 lines are going to score. Whatever line Kucherov is on is going to score. The Cirelli Hagel combination is going to score. But if they're starting to get goals from that Gourde line, that's when this team's going to be tough to beat. And as this shakes out over the next week or so, they are going to be a big key for them. So that's what I'm kind of looking forward to as the Lightning hit this road trip coming up after the Boston game.
Justin, last night, normal Lightning killers, Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby, were pretty much non-factors. For the Penguins, most of the offense generated was from their third line. What did the Lightning do to solve the Crosby and Malkin duo?
I think they really just kind of threw the Gourde line out against Crosby. I was just talking about how they were down. The Gourde line was playing down in the Pittsburgh end for most of the game, and that's pretty much what they did against Crosby. So the matchup, Gourde was out there for more than 9 minutes against Crosby and Rust. Really dominated the shot advantage in that. So good players like that, the best way you can keep them off the scoreboard, just don't let them have the puck. Malkin had a little bit more room, I think, on his line, just because they matched him up like a Cirelli, which without a Hagel isn't as strong of a shutdown line as they normally are. A little more offensive based with Gage Gonsalves and Oliver Bjorkstrand on that line. So it's not as strong defensively as it normally is. But even then, Malkin only had, I think, one really solid chance. So he took his typical Evgeny Malkin penalty late in the game when he got into a little tussle with Bjorkstrand along the boards. It's funny, I was listening to a preview and somebody called it the Malkin hat trick. It's a goal and assist and a done penalty.
And a hooking call in the offensive zone.
Offensive zone, exactly. But yeah, so I think it was just they just kept the puck away from him. And I know Crosby's battling through something now. He didn't look like Sidney Crosby last night. You could tell he's kind of playing with something. There was a little moment on an icing. It was kind of funny. Puck shot down. Chernak's going back to get it. And he kind of pulls up short. Looks like he was going to try and throw it a reverse hit on Crosby. And Crosby was not happy about it. The whistle blew. There wasn't really any contact. But Crosby was absolutely barking at Chernak the entire time. So it kind of showed a little frustration on his part, I think. He just kept the puck out of his hands, which is the best
Well,
way to
just
do it.
like George Costanza, he doesn't want anyone to stop short.
Stop short. Yeah, he stopped short on him. And like Chernak kind of gave him that stare, like, you really want to do this, boy? I think by the end of the game, the Penguins were a pretty frustrated team. That's kind of vintage hockey. That's vintage Lightning hockey. That's what we saw during the Cup run. That's what we saw during this big run for the Olympic break. It's just you get the lead. Yeah, it's the Cooper. You get the lead, extend the lead, get the lead, protect the lead, and extend the lead. And that's exactly what they did. So,
Justin, before we go into the Boston game, I was looking at the Penguins' schedule, and I don't remember ever seeing this. They play Florida this weekend, but they play both games back to back in Pittsburgh. Now, I know this NHL schedule is a little weird because it's so condensed. I don't ever remember seeing that with anyone's schedule. Do you?
They did it a little bit that post-COVID year that was it 2021 when you had the division. And every once in a while the Lightning they had one earlier this year. They had a similar game where they played in the arena, had a day off, and then played again. I want to say it was the Islanders or somebody like that. I thought it was one of the Metro teams. It's just one of those weird little schedule quirks. If you're a Penguins fan, you can't hate that schedule you have down the road. They got Washington on the schedule twice. So
yeah.
So yeah, I think this was kind of a hard game, and maybe the Penguins were kind of looking forward to that. They're like, "Hey, man, we've been on a rough stretch," because they have been, and they've been winning these games, against playoff teams without Crosby, without Malkin. I know Carlson's had a really great month. I think he was the second star of the month behind Kucherov, and then Anthony Mantha. We were kind of talking. Yeah, we were talking before the podcast about the job Dubas has done, especially with like the Chinnikov trade. But Mantha's another one of these guys. I mean, who had him for 30 goals this year? So I think he's done a really good job building that. It's going to be interesting to see what Mantha gets. He's an unrestricted free agent, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're going to make some money.
So after bouncing around a few years, it's really nice. Yeah, good to see him have a good year. But yeah.
I just wanted to bring that up, that schedule quirk. You
don't see it often. Yeah, you don't see it often. I think it pops up every once in a while, and it's just kind of wondering what the schedule makers do. I don't mind it, honestly. I would kind of like to see it a little more often. And I know when they did it during the cap year, some of the players liked it, especially in division games where we do play a team 3 or 4 times a year. And I think with the more division heavy schedule next year, it'll be interesting to see if they do that. Maybe if each team has one of these kind of almost baseball-like series where you're in town for a couple of days, especially late in the year. It's nice if you're the road team because you're not flying back and forth or flying to a different city. So you get that off day is really kind of a true rest day for you. But yeah, it's nice to see. Unfortunately, the Lightning have the opposite. They're on the road for most of the rest of the year. So, but hey, they had a nice homestand. They're picking up the points like they need to, and they just need to close it out against Boston pretty strongly.
Well, let's talk about the game that concludes this homestand. They play the Boston Bruins 5:00 on Saturday at home. Tell us a little bit about the Bruins. David Pastrnak, Morgan Geekie, Jeremy Swayman's in net. Tell me about a player you're a little bit concerned about heading into this matchup.
It's always going to be Pastrnak for me, to tell you the truth. He's kind of the guy that stirs their drink. As far as he's kind of their Kucherov. Look at his numbers. He's getting close to 100 points. Him and Kucherov are probably the only wingers that are going to hit that 100-point mark this year, which is pretty impressive. So got to keep an eye out for him. Geekie's having that big, strong year out of nowhere. They got the physical play, so going to see how their third and fourth lines kind of do. Casey Middlestad's got a 40-point season. He's kind of really picked it up. I know a lot of people were talking about Victor Arvidsson. Yeah, he's at 50 points on the year, so they've got some depth. I know you talked with Hardev about the Maple Leafs, but there's that Fraser Minten trade that the Boston made last year is really paying off for them. Not only do they get Minten, and they got that first-round pick coming up, possibly unless Toronto completely tanks and ends up in the top 5, but Fraser Minten's got 17 goals for him, so they really added to their depth. It's going to be kind of a matchup game, I feel like. So they're going to, roll 3 lines. The Lightning are going to roll 3 lines. And I think the top 2 lines cancel each other out. You got to go from there.
None of us thought Boston would be in this spot at the beginning of the season. Everyone, I think, pretty much had the Bruins as one of the teams that were out of the playoffs. When you make a bump up and you have a surprising season. You need to have some guys have surprising years. Pavel Zacha, the center, 28 goals this year. He is one that has quietly had a very nice season, has 60 points. You figure with about 8 or 9 games left, he's going to get to that 65-point mark, a career year for him. I think that's one of the reasons why Boston's here. It's because it's given them some balance amongst their scoring lines. It's not all Pasternak.
Yeah, I think last year they kind of fell into that. They were a one-line team last year, especially after Marchand was traded away at the deadline. So, yeah, a little more balance here. Swayman's having a bounce-back year. He had a really, really bad year last year. The whole contract dispute heading into camp, signs early in the season. I don't think he ever really kind of found his game last year. But you're looking at a guy now, he's got 30 wins. His goals against is under 3, 908 save percentage. So having Swayman kind of back to be Jeremy Swayman has helped them out as well. So that, when they are, giving up the shots, he's back there making the stops.
After the home tilt against the Bruins, the Lightning head to the road next week. They go Monday at Buffalo, Tuesday at Ottawa, Thursday at Montreal, and then Saturday they face the Boston Bruins. So they're going to face the Bruins twice in a week. Justin, real quick, you look at this road trip, you have a back-to-back to start it out. Are we looking at Johansson again on Tuesday night against Ottawa?
Yeah, that would be my guess. They're going to be at the worst 2 points behind Buffalo, by the time they match out, depending on what happens this weekend. So, yeah, I think you get Vasilevsky against Buffalo. You give it the all. We all know Cooper loves trying to win that first game. The Lightning have done a pretty good job of it in their back-to-backs this year. They had 10 or 11 wins in the first half, and then you throw Johansson out there. I was kind of peeking at the schedule. I see at least 2 starts for Johansson down the stretch. As far as he's probably going to start this game, he'll probably start the Rangers game. The last game of the season, I would expect that gives Vasilevsky a nice little break before the playoffs. So depending on how the playoffs shake out, does he get one more? I don't know. I think the Lightning, as much as they love talking about just getting into the playoffs and then not caring about seeding, I do think they want home ice in the first round. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see Vasilevsky play the majority of the stretch, and then, like I said, Johansson getting that Ottawa game and then the Rangers game.
Well, normally Justin and I will talk about some NHL news and notes at this point, but with Toronto making so much news out there, we wanted to get a Toronto perspective on everything that's going on with the Maple Leafs. So from Pension Plan Puppets, I did an interview late yesterday with Hardev Lad. So here's that interview right now. You're on Backchecking the Bolts. We try to look at the entire NHL, and I really got after Mitch Marner. And hey, you know what? I had my opinion. I really ripped into the Leafs, but we wanted to bring in someone with some insight on the Leafs. So we reached out to our friends at pensionplanpuppets.com, and Hardev Lad covers the Leafs, been covering for 10 years. Hardev, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Saying I've been covering them for 10 years makes me feel old, but I guess it's true. Yeah, it's nice to be on. Thank you.
Well, you originally started with SB Nation. You since have created the pensionplanpuppets.com site. Tell us a little bit about the site.
We've hit our 3-year anniversary as an independent site. It's been awesome. We have an amazing following. We're self-sustaining. It's great. We cover the games every day, every game. We have chats every day. The strength of PPP, the reason why we have so many followers, we have people who like to come and see us is our comment section. Every day we're in there, we're chatting. It's a really great forum. I really, really have a lot of fun talking to our other writers about prospects and the team and all those kinds of things and Marlies. So we have a lot of fun at PPP, and always like to have more people joining in.
Well, let's talk about what's going on with the Leafs. And there's a lot of talk out there. First of all, Brad Treliving, he has been relieved from his general manager duties. The head of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, Keith Pelly, he said something today that made absolutely no sense to me. He said, I want to hire a general manager that's high on analytics. 3 years ago, you had the guy in Kyle Dubas. Mm-hmm. You bring in Treliving. Different scenario. You only give him 3 years. Now you want to go back to where you were before. What's your thought? Was it about time for him to be let go?
The interesting thing is that MLSE, the owners of the Leafs, have gone through a new ownership change. Basically, they were kind of split 50-50 between Rogers and Bell. Now, recently, Rogers owns pretty much all of it at this point. I'm not really sure the details, but let's just go with that. Keith Pelly is a recent hire. He is someone who's come in only in the last few years. I think he was around when Tree Living was hired, but he might not have been. So this is kind of his first chance to go and get involved with the team. So yes, they had Kyle Dubas, and that was, the structure that they wanted to have back then. That relationship was over like 8 years long. I think Kyle Dubas was the GM for like 5 to 7 years, somewhere in that range. That relationship expired for all of the reasons that had happened. They wanted to go a different direction. That different direction was Brad Treliving. It didn't work. Just frankly, didn't work at all. So now they're trying to go back. When I was listening to Keith Pelly's talks, it wasn't that he was looking for like the smartest person in town who has the best numbers. It's not really analytics necessarily that he was looking for. He gave some really clear indications that he's looking for someone who will make the most of the resources that the Leafs have. I think that was an indication that Brad Treliving and his group didn't. They weren't really listening to everyone that they were paying to, come up with ideas, tell them things that are real, tell them things that are important. I think that was probably part of the reason I feel like they did a lot of decisions off the cuff, a lot of decisions in a panic. I'll say the biggest one, the one that I think got the most angst from Leafs fans was actually signing Max Domi. Getting him that extension
Really?
of
all the ones, it was Max Domi.
Mm-hmm. I think it has really hampered this team because it was a gut, panic decision that they were worried they weren't going to get anyone else in free agency, and they re-upped him for 4 years, and he has been really, really problematic for the team. It is hard to find a line for him to play on that isn't playing next to Austin Matthews, which hampers Austin Matthews, or on a third line that you can't trust. You can't trust him. That's interesting. You can't trust him necessarily to get the most out of Austin Matthews. So he has actually really hamstrung this lineup a lot. And that is one of, I think, many decisions that Treliving did make that has really cost this team a lot. As you probably would look, if you looked at their stat sheet or their futures sheet, they don't have first round picks in 2 of the next 3 years, right? Including this one. And the players that they got back from those trades were Brandon Carlo and Scott Laughton. It's not much. You're not getting much out of that. So they have had a lot of struggles, and a lot of those decisions, I think, are the things that Keith Pelly really wants to fix.
So you talked about the lack of picks that they have. You keep hearing that they want to retool and not rebuild. You have Morgan Rielly tied to a contract that is cap crippling for a defenseman who's only getting 35 points in a season. He signed an 8-year, $60 million deal.
Yeah.
And it doesn't expire until the 29-30 season. So he's likely to possibly be bought out. But do the Leafs have the resources to retool, like a Detroit has tried to do, like a Pittsburgh has tried to do it, and Washington a couple years earlier? Do they have those resources?
Ironically, I think it's Pittsburgh that they're most interested in looking like, where Kyle Dubas, ironically, the Leafs former GM, has turned that team around through a few years of a retool while keeping them competitive, while giving, Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin fun, interesting, useful years where they're not completely crap. And giving them that kind of middle ground of getting young players and developing them and bringing them in, but also keeping the team relatively consistent or relatively playable. I think that sort of might be the direction that they're heading in. Now, I don't know if Morgan Rielly is the key linchpin for like the cap any more than in the past, because while the Leafs were competitive, especially during the Dubas era, the cap was more or less flat. Like they weren't getting any increases in the cap. Now the cap's going up a lot. So the Rielly situation is more a case of lineup spot and less about money. I think the really key thing here is Austin Matthews. You have 2 years left with him. What do? You want to be competitive with him. You want to see if you can keep him. If you can't, then you trade him and you do the rebuild. So this team is in a retool / quick change, or a new face, new ideas. Maybe you can refresh the roster in a year and see what next year looks like with Austin Matthews for sure. And if that doesn't work out, it has its problems, you can't convince Matthews to stay long term, then you go for the full rebuild. I think that's kind of the idea.
So if you trade, let's say hypothetically you trade Matthews, does that also mean you're trading William Nylander?
Well, probably. I just don't think you trade him until he has 1 year left on his contract. Unless you've actually tried with the new GM, you've given it a chance. You see if he wants to stay. I don't think that Matthews has given much indication that he wants out necessarily. He wanted to be the captain. He wanted to be here. He wanted to win a championship here. Those things could all still be true. It's just a case of what makes most sense for the team, right? Do you trade him or do you not? If Matthews goes and you want to do a full rebuild, yeah, you probably will also want to trade William Nylander at some point. Maybe don't do it all at once, but at some point.
So let's take a look at the Eastern Conference right now.
Yeah.
You have Carolina, who has pretty much asserted themselves in the Metro. In the Atlantic, you have Buffalo, Montreal, Tampa, and even Boston is on the fringe of fighting for that division title. Hardev, who do you like in the Atlantic for one to win the division, and who do you like to come out of the East?
Back when I started covering the Leafs, I also covered the Lightning, so they still hold a place in my heart. So I'm always going to cheer for the Lightning. I'll always hope that they do well. Buffalo is really, really hot right now. Let's see if that keeps going and if they can keep that momentum alive. Can never count the Lightning out to at the very least win the division or to go far. So I don't know, the teams that I really like, the teams that I'm looking for, I expect Tampa to go far because they know how to win. They keep their heads cool through those years, through all that pressure. Carolina, it kind of feels like they're the only team that's stood head and shoulders above the rest for a while and is still that good. Everyone else, especially in the Metro, it's pretty flat in the middle of that Metro division from Pittsburgh all the way down. Like Carolina's in an area of their own in the Metro. It's hard between Tampa and Carolina. That would be a really fun conference finals.
It really would be. Now, I'm going to ask you this. Give me a sleeper in both the East and the West, a team that could sneak up and do some damage in the playoffs.
See, the thing is, like, the obvious answer is Buffalo, because you never know if they're going to be real or this was their first try. They're going to start seeing a bunch of things that they're not used to in the playoffs. They're going to, either collapse or they're going to play through it. So Buffalo, even though they're leading the division right now, who knows if they can keep that going? They haven't proven themselves yet, sort of situation. Buffalo is kind of my wild card because I don't see them as that established playoff contender yet. Buffalo is kind of my sleeper pick in the East. For the West, I just think Colorado is going to win the division. They're going to win the West. So it's going to be Colorado. Someone who might be able to beat them.
I'm going to go on the limb and say the Ducks. I'm going to go on the limb and say the Ducks.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard because they're fun, but that fun can become problematic when the games start getting tighter, right?
Right.
They lost to the Leafs last week, I think, and that's kind of embarrassing for them, to be honest with you. So, I've taken them off my list because you lose to the Leafs. That's not a good look for you. So,
here's the one reason:
Colorado or the field. It's Colorado or the field right now.
Hardev, one of the reasons I like the Ducks is I love the acquisition of John Carlson. I think that was a great acquisition along the blue line, a veteran presence. This team has not been in the playoffs for quite some time, and there's a learning curve, similar to Buffalo, like you were saying. And I just think the Pacific is so weak right now that unless Edmonton gets their act together, I think they almost have a free ride to the conference finals. Maybe I'm giving the Ducks too much credit, but I just feel like it's an easy trip.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. Like they have it easier than others, so they have a bit of that benefit compared to everyone else. Again, Colorado. I don't know how you beat that team. Just be honest.
They are loaded. So Hardev, tell us what's going on at Pension Plan Puppets. For anyone here, you can go to pensionplanpuppets.com and check out Hardev and his team. What's going on over there?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're looking at the GM search. We're looking at coach staff. We're just trying to get an eye of how the summer is going to go. We're getting on that early. I think the discussions we're having are really interesting about who might be an option, what the structure might look like, and what kind of player movements they might make. And I really hope that they get onto this sooner rather than later in terms of hiring people and getting a plan together, because the worst thing you can do is come in unprepared and then be stuck. So we're talking about that a lot over at PPP. We have lots of fun, and it gives us something better to do than talk about losing, because this league season was not fun, and this is actually giving us something to talk about finally, rather than a team that doesn't adapt, a team that doesn't win, a team that's doing the same thing over and over again.
Well, Hardev, first of all, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
You can see Hardev and his team at pensionplanpuppets.com. Hope to talk to you later in the playoffs, and hey, appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely. Call me back.
You got it. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate Hardev Lad joining us. We hope to have him back when the Lightning face Toronto at some point next year. Justin, the Lightning did not come out of the Montreal game unscathed. A couple injuries. You had Brandon Hagel. You had Scott Sabourin. Tell us about that.
Not quite sure what's going on with Hagel. He played 22 minutes in that game. He was on the ice for much of the end of it. I think his last shift technically was 3 minutes long, just a mix with the Lightning power plays, and then that big stoppage after Kucherov was boarded by Jake Evans. So he looked fine. They announced it at the practice on Wednesday that he wasn't on the ice, and afterward, Cooper said that he was day to day, doubtful to play against the Penguins, and then he did mention also that Scott Sabourin was also a little dinged up and also day-to-day and doubtful. Sabourin did take the big hit at the end of the game from Arbor Jackage, and they got into a little tussle. So, you could kind of see he probably got a little dinged up from that. So not quite sure what's going on with Hagel. It's kind of could be one of these little lingering things. Maybe they're just giving him a day off. Maybe he's feeling a little under the weather. They did have that illness bug that took Kucherov out for a couple games. It's hard to say. Lightning, it was kind of funny after the morning skate, Jeff Halpern kind of was the point person to answer the reporters. And he was like, dude, I don't know what's going on. He was like, I have no idea. He's like, somebody had mentioned that Hagel was doubtful. He's like, I didn't even know that, man. I was working on the power play. So they're being their usual.
I always say the NHL, if you went through history, right now, Abraham Lincoln would be questionable to come back to Ford's Theater with an upper body injury.
With an upper body, yeah. So, yeah, he's doubtful for tonight. Is it the worst thing in the world if it's not a huge problem? I don't mind Hagel getting a day off here or there. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes with the road trip. Calling up Chaffee, they kind of showed him that they wanted to go with that 12 forward roster as opposed to going 11-7. They could have cycled Steve Santini in, but I think they wanted to kind of keep their lines a little bit more stable against the Penguins. He played pretty well. He's had a great season down in Syracuse after getting sent down there, so it's nice to see him up. Give that fourth line a little physical punch.
Justin, the other Lightning news was Victor Hedman. He was placed on long-term injured reserve. We all know Hedman has been on a personal leave. Why do the Lightning place him on long-term injured reserve?
It's always interesting this time of year with such a short time left in the season. The cap math changes on a daily basis. I think they moved him over there just to be able to free up enough money to be able to pull up Mitchell Chaffee, have that player come up. I don't think it changes his timeline with what they were planning on doing with him, whatever's keeping him out right now. Hopefully he's back for the end of the year. Again, he's another one of these guys. I don't want to rush him back. He's had that bad year. He's been dealing with injuries all year long. It seemed like he was getting over that elbow thing, and then at the Olympics he tweaked something lower body. So I think at this point their defense is playing well enough that they don't need to rush him back. Not as big a deal as maybe in some other years.
So this was pretty much just a way to sort of massage the salary cap. There wasn't a strategy behind it other than that.
In my opinion, that's what happened. Not being there in the boardroom, you never know exactly what's going on, but I don't think it's any indication that whatever he's dealing with has gotten worse or that his timeline has changed. I think somebody did ask Halpern about that as well. And he played dumb. He's like, I don't know what's going on. If you go back to that 2018-19 season that the Lightning had such a great regular season and then, got swept in the first round, Hedman was hurt towards the end of the season there. And I think he wasn't the same in that first round. I think Dan Girardi had gotten hurt too. So I think Cooper's kind of being a little wary with some of these injuries. He knows the Lightning are going to make the playoffs. He knows they're probably going to be a top seed. He's not going to force these guys back or force them to play if they're not 100%. It's been such a condensed month since the Olympics and even before that if he can get them an extra day off, that he's going to do that. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing right now. If the Lightning were, say, in a wild card spot or hunting for the playoffs, I would not be surprised if Hagel was playing and possibly even Hedman.
When they announced that Hagel was out, I was thinking to myself, are they giving him sort of a maintenance game?
Yeah.
Don't play against Pittsburgh, knowing that Buffalo's right ahead of the schedule on Monday.
Out of all the leagues out there, the Lightning, you talk about load maintenance, and I know the NBA is going through it right now, trying to find that fine line of how you deal with keeping your players healthy and but still getting them on the ice. With the way hockey is, I don't think the players would agree to just sitting out just to sit out. There's been some speculation that, hey, this illness that's going around, maybe Jake Getzel's going to catch it at some point, or maybe Ryan McDonough's going to catch it at some point. You'd be hard pressed to convince, I think, a hockey player to just take a day off just to take a day off. But if they are banged up, if they are trying to come back from something, they know the importance of being healthy and rested for the playoffs. So yeah, I don't think they're hurrying back from some of these injuries or illnesses, but at the same time, I don't think there's any like manipulation going on either.
It's sort of like the players who come back from the Vegas flu.
Yeah. That doesn't seem to be such a big deal. I think the league's kind of adjusted to playing in Vegas. I know that first year, even the Lightning, I think, got wrapped up in it a little bit. I think teams have adjusted to traveling to Vegas these days. Not that anybody in the league gambles, right? There's no gambling.
No one does.
No. Shame.
Hey, I'll be out there on the 13th.
Yeah. Oh, nice. All right. What am I doing on the 13th? Yeah. But yeah, so it's going to be an interesting, next 2 weeks just to see what the lineup looks like going into that Rangers game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Lightning are kind of clinched into a spot that you may see some players rest. May see some call-ups from Syracuse for the day. They still got a couple of their recalls available to bring somebody up. So we could see an interesting lineup on that final game. But I think right now they're looking to get their play on the ice into a playoff style, which we saw against Pittsburgh. I thought that was a very playoff-like win. And then they're just trying to get healthy. They're trying to stay healthy.
Justin, what's going on over at Raw Charge?
We'll take a look at some stuff. I kind of want to dig in. We mentioned Gergensen's picked up that 100th goal. He had such a bad year last year point-wise. I think a lot of people soured on the acquisition. I think what we're seeing this year is what they were expecting out of Gergensen's. Kind of break down his season a little bit, see how he's played, what he brings to the team. He's not going to be the biggest goal scorer in the world, but it was his 9th goal last year. So from somebody on the third line who's out there for defensive responsibility, that's a pretty good output. We'll take a look at that, preview the Boston game, preview the Buffalo game. I think that's going to be your capstone on the season. What happens in that game is going to determine how they play down the stretch. Hopefully the Lightning can pick up the win, maybe pick up that first spot in the Atlantic and get that overall home ice advantage for as long as they can in the playoffs.
Our next podcast here on Backchecking the Bolts will be dropping on Monday, probably around noontime. We're going to recap the Bruins game, and we're going to preview the big tilt in Buffalo next Monday night. Also, we'll talk about the Ottawa game the following day as the Lightning embark on a 4-game road trip. For Justin Godfrey, who you could see at www.rawcharge.com, I'm Jason Linkus. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please hit that like and subscribe button. We're almost to 1,200 subscribers. We're growing quick, and we can't do it without you, so thank you very much. For Justin, I'm Jason. Thanks again, and go Bolts.
Go Bolts.
Thank you for listening to Backchecking the Bolts. We are free and available on all platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, YouTube, and Deezer. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to subscribe and leave a review. You can follow Justin on Blue Sky at rawcharge.com. You can follow the show on X at Tampa_Bolts_pod and on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Backchecking the Bolts. If you're interested in advertising on the show or partnering with us, you can find more information in the show notes or email Jason at backcheckingthebolts@yahoo.com.